Hello, my name is Jennifer Johnsen, and I am a fourth grade ELA and social studies teacher in St. Tammany Parish Public Schools. Today, I am going to read the story Owl Moon to you, and then after there will be another video with a lesson about figurative language, since there's so much of that in the story, but we'll specifically talk about similes. Come read along with me. Owl Moon, written by Jane Yolen and illustrated by John Shaner. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. I could hear it through the woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time. And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked on toward the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short round shadow bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I had been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up, as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," the sound of a great horned owl. "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." Again he called out, and then again. After each call, he was silent, and for a moment we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back. Whew. And my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hide behind black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than the milk in a cereal bowl. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf over my mouth and listened hard. And then Pa called, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." I listened and looked so hard, my ears hurt, and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo." Pa almost smiled. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," pea and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or the moon, or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf, off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. The owl's call came closer, from high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently, with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words, or warm, or anything but hope. That's what Pa says, the kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. The end. We just finished reading Owl Moon, and it had so much figurative language, but we're going to focus on similes for today in our lesson. Okay, so similes are figures of speech, and they compare two unlike things, two different things, using the words like or as. We're like two peas in a pod. That's an example of a simile. And you see the word like in it, and it's comparing us to peas in a pod. And what that means is that they're very close, just like you see those peas in a pod close to one another. They stay by each other. Here's another simile. My grandpa walks as slow as a turtle. So grandpa and a turtle are two very different things. But what's one way that they're alike? Well, they're both slow. Do you see the word as? That's right. There it is. So why should we use similes? Well, we should use similes in our writing because they make it more descriptive. And what do I mean by descriptive? Descriptive means it's helping the reader be able to see what's happening, be able to hear it, feel it, smell it, and even taste it. Now, are they really there? No, but you want the reader to feel like they're really there. You want it to be like a movie in their mind. Okay, so we want to make our writing descriptive, and when we add similes, it helps to do that. Last night I slept like a log. So this one is comparing myself to a log. Well, how am I like a log? What do I know about a log? A log is very still. It doesn't move. It's brown. It's made of wood. Well, no, I'm not brown and made of wood. But I do stay still a lot during the night when I'm sleeping, so that's how they're alike. Because I didn't move all night. I was so tired, I just stayed still like a log. All right, here's another simile that's very descriptive. The tattered t-shirt was as worn as an old book cover. Well, you know what happens when you read a book a lot of times and it gets really worn from being read so much? Must be a good book, huh? Well, this t-shirt was like that. So what do you think it means? Well, maybe it's kind of ripped or faded, right? And it just looks really worn. So this is another simile. It uses the word as this time. And it's showing that the t-shirt was really worn. So hopefully you can picture that better in your mind with that simile. Similes can also help us to express emotion. Instead of just saying that the boy was sad in your story, You can say he was as sad as a dog who lost its bone. Now you can see how sad he is, right? So it's comparing him to a dog, right? Now a boy and a dog are two different things, but what's one way they're alike? Well, this boy is sad just like a dog would be sad when it lost its bone. Another example that shows emotion is the boy was as scared as a rabbit surrounded by wolves. Can you picture a rabbit surrounded by wolves? Probably be pretty scared, right? Well, this boy was very scared too. And so that helps to give us an image in our mind. So it's also descriptive, right? And it helps us feel how scared he was, just like a rabbit that would be surrounded by wolves. Similes can also make our writing entertaining, fun, enjoyable to read. Here's an example. You ready? Joe was as sour as a dill pickle. We're comparing Joe to a dill pickle. That's pretty funny, right? We're trying to show that he's sour. Dill pickles are sour and Joe is sour. Now, does that mean he tastes like a dill pickle? No. It just means his attitude's kind of sour. He's not happy with what happened. He's probably in a bad mood. Okay? All right, here's another one. Get ready. It's kind of gross, so if you don't like gross things, cover your ears. My love for you is like diarrhea. I can't hold it in. That simile used the word like, right? And it's comparing my love and diarrhea. Now, how could those two things possibly be alike? Well, they're hard to hold in, meaning he loves them so much he just can't contain it. Or, and then there's diarrhea, which we know it's hard to contain, it just comes out. Very gross, I warned you. Okay, so here are some similes from the book Owl Moon. I just picked out a couple of my favorites, but there are many. The trees stood still as giant statues. So this is comparing the trees to giant statues, not just statues, but giant statues. So what does that tell me about these trees? Well, one, it tells me that they're very tall, right? It also helps me to picture that it's being very still like a statue is. Remember, a statue doesn't move. So I know the trees are very tall and very still. They're not moving. Here's another simile from Owl Moon. I could feel the cold as if someone's icy hand was palm down on my back. Gives me the shivers. So yes, this simile is comparing how she felt, the cold, and how it feels if somebody puts a really cold hand on your back. How many of you have ever felt that before? Somebody put a cold hand or a cold foot on your back? Woo-hoo, it's cold. And this gives us a good image in our mind, and it really helps us to feel how the girl in the story felt. It's your turn. Can you add similes to make these sentences sound better? You ready? Okay, you can get a pencil, but you don't have to. Just think with me, okay? All right, so here's a kind of boring sentence, and we want to jazz it up. Here's the boring sentence. Joseph's hands were cold. How can we make that sound better? We can add similes, right? Yes. All right, but before we come up with a simile, someone I know taught me a great trick. And she said, if you have to explain your simile to somebody, then you probably need to work on it some more to make it better. So the best thing we can do to make a good simile is brainstorm. So Joseph's hands were cold. So before I write my simile, I need to think of things that are cold. Do you see my brainstorm box? These are some things I thought of that are cold. Ice, ice cubes, snow, Antarctica, a freezer, maybe even the North Pole. We could add that to our list. What can you think of that's really cold? Okay, so now that you've maybe thought of something, or you're just going to use some of mine, that's fine too as we're learning. So Joseph's hands were as cold as Antarctica. That's my favorite. But you can pick whichever one you want. But just remember to brainstorm first before you write that simile to make it a good simile. Here's another one. The alarm clock was loud. I'm going to change this because I think this is a little confusing. Okay, so the alarm clock was loud. What could it be as loud as? Let's see, what are some things that are loud? A fire drill? Maybe I might put a dead bird singing and a bee buzzing because the alarm clock could sound like that, right? However, I just said the alarm clock was loud. So I need to think about, am I trying to show that the alarm clock is loud, or do I want them to really hear what it sounds like? Well, if I want them to hear what it sounds like, then maybe I could keep a dead bird singing, because maybe an alarm clock does kind of sound like that, or a bee buzzing. But if I'm trying to show that it's loud, I think a fire drill would be the best. And I changed my mind. I want to show what it sounded like. So I'm just going to leave that off. And I'm going to say the alarm clock sounded like, and notice I'm putting my like or as in purple so it stands out to you, because every simile has to have one of those two words. The alarm clock sounded like a dead bird singing. I think that one is what it sounds like, and I think it's kind of funny. So I'm going to use that one, but you can pick your own. My puppy was happy. Are you ready? How can we make this sound better with a simile? All right, I already brainstormed some things that I think are very happy. I think a kid or a child on his birthday would be very happy. Or a child at Disney World. Or even a person who won the lottery, they'd be so happy, right? So I'm going to pick my favorite one, but you can make up one of your own. What are some things you think of that are very happy? Okay, so my favorite one was a kid at Disney World. So I'm going to put my puppy was as happy as a kid at Disney World. And I like that simile. Okay, so I encourage you when you're writing and you're trying to show how a character feels, or you're trying to help, you want the reader to be able to picture what's happening in your story, try to add some similes to your writing. Remember, a simile is when you compare two things and you use the words like or as. Thank you for watching. As we learned about similes, I think you all did a great job listening and learning with me. Remember to keep watching other videos just like this one so that we can all keep learning together. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. Remember, you can follow us on YouTube, St. Tammany Parish Public Schools, to watch more videos and learn together, or you can watch channel 198 with Charter Cable.